Okay, so welcome everyone to the kickoff webinar for the BC Leo Network. It's been a long time coming. Happy that you all are taking some time out of your day to join us and learn a little bit about Leo and its possibilities. Before anything, I must introduce myself. My name is Corey Thomas, Mohawk name Scounhode. I am from Six Nations of the Grand River, which is located in Ontario. Currently residing on Squamish land right now and working in the role as the BC Leo Network Coordinator. Appreciate you guys joining and looking forward to sharing some great information with you guys. So before anything, I'd like to, in getting into the whole presentation, I think it's only right that we start this thing off with a good opening prayer from our awesome elder, Sequelia. So Sequelia, if you are on the call, are you here?
I don't see her as joined, so maybe something came up.
Okay, well, we'll just wait just another moment, I guess, and whatnot. Because it'd be absolutely awesome to have her partake in getting us started in a good way for this. While we wait, I'll just run through a little bit of the agenda then. Hopefully nothing's wrong or anything with her, so fingers crossed everything's okay and she'll be able to attend. So I just want to run through the agenda then while we have a little bit of time. So we've gone through a little bit of the welcome and introduction, and I'm very much hoping we'll get to have our opening prayer. The next thing we'll really touch on is how to use Zoom. And this is just, like I said, we want this to be very much an interactive gathering for today where people really feel comfortable and have access to participate. So to help with this, I just want to take a moment just to go over some of the basics of Zoom. Next, we'll be having a guest presentation by the awesome Erica Lewan, who is the Leo Network Coordinator up in Alaska. I know she's been instrumental in helping me get up and running, and any kind of questions, I may have had, or any kind of things, whatever's come up, she's been awesome in helping me get rolling with that. So very much looking forward to having her share some cool information with you guys. Following that, I'll be providing the introduction to the BC Leo Network. And then following that, we'll be exploring some Leo posts in BC, time permitting, and then a little bit of Q&A, and then following that with our closing prayer. Have we, Sequelia, joined at all?
Not that I can see, sorry, Cody.
Okay, that's okay. Hopefully she'll be able to make it for the ending for this. In the meantime, I guess I'll provide a quick brief opening. It's sort of a condensed version of what I would usually do. So I'll share that with everyone now. So Sego Soberguego, my name's Corey Thomas. I just want to say yawa for having everyone be able to gather for today's event, even through it being virtual today. Glad that the creator has allowed us this space and this time to be able to share a lot of great information with one another. And we also ask that the creator provide good health to not only those who are here, but everyone's families as well. And then everyone is able to get some great information from this. And then as well, take care of the ones that aren't able to be in attendance with us today and really to bring us a safe place to be for this day. So Yawa, thank you, creator, for having us and allowing us to do this, and we will have a good time doing it. So yes, just the condensed version of the way I would usually do it back home. So thank you guys for listening to that, and I'll be getting us started now. So I always think it's best to introduce the great team behind this, because it does take a team to get the project up and running, and acknowledge all the awesome people behind this work. So first, I would like to, you've already seen who I am, and I've told you a little bit. I'd like to introduce Dion Sanderson, who is the Environmental Contamination Program Coordinator at the Environmental Public Health Services team at FNHA. She's been like my rock in this whole process, from teaching me about LEO and getting me started in this process. So it's absolutely awesome to have her on board to help me with this project. And then lastly, we have our fearless leader in all of this, Peter Mazie, who is the acting manager for the Environmental Public Health Services team at FNHA. So I think just for a little bit of background information, it'd be nice to know which organization and teams house the BC LEO network. And the First Nations Health Authority is the health and wellness partner to over 200 diverse First Nations communities and citizens across BC. So they're responsible for the programs and services that were formerly provided by Health Canada. And the First Nations Health Authority works to address service gaps through building new partnerships, closer collaboration, health systems innovation and reform, and the redesign of health programs and services for individuals, families, communities, and nations. And as well, we have to highlight the team, the specific team that houses the BC LEO network, which would be the Environmental Public Health Services. So EPHS works to identify and prevent public health risks in First Nations communities that could impact the health of community members. So where public health risks are identified, recommendations are provided to reduce these risks. Community training, education, and awareness is where community capacity is increased to achieve a healthy and safe environment. The Environmental Public Health Services team also works closely with many communities to address the concerns needed within these core program areas, which you can see there. So as you can see, very far-reaching and much services offered in the realm of environmental public health. So now I'm just going to take, like I said, one quick moment just to go over a little bit of Zoom features, just so everyone has the ability to participate. As you can see here, we have the mics that are muted and cameras off at the moment. But if you want to ask a question, we are able to unmute the mics and allow you to share whatever it is you would like to ask or anything along those lines. The other thing I want to highlight, if you can see my cursor, is the chat feature. So if you were to click on this chat box, you'll see to the right a chat area will open up, where if you don't feel comfortable to voice a question over your microphone, feel free to type it into the chat box. Either I or one of the moderators will be able to see it, and hopefully we'll be able to answer that for you. And then lastly, I just wanted to highlight the reactions tab. If you were to click that, you'll see some cool emotes which you can showcase. But the one thing I really wanted to bring to attention was the ability to raise your hand. So if you don't feel comfortable unmuting your mic and jumping in or sharing through the chat feature, you can always click that, and in the top left corner you'll see a little hand raise, and we'll be able to take notes of that and have address any questions that you may have. So without further, yep.
Sequelia has joined us.
Okay, Sequelia, Sego, hello.
Hello. I'll have to just unmute her.
Good to hear you.
Hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, and my apologies. I was having a good
Whoa.
I have just a minute.
Just a little bit of technical difficulties. That's okay.
Unmute me.
Oh, we can hear you.
Okay. I was having a good conversation with my grandson, and then all of a sudden I saw the time and went, oh my God, I'm late.
Well, it's quite all right, Sequelia. We've literally just started. So if you'd like to take a time to open us with a good prayer, we'd love to hear it.
Okay, then. I'm not sure if my video's showing or if you can still hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Kayachton, and again, my apologies. My 16-year-old grandson and I were sitting here talking, and I lost track of time. So we were talking about being healthy and getting out on the land for walks. And so I welcome each and every one of you. Kayachton means welcome in Squamish to the ancestral traditional territories of Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish here on where I'm at on the North Shore and Park Royal area. and Tsleil-Waututh and Musqueam, and also acknowledge and recognize the ancestral traditional lands of where many of you may be zooming in from, where you live, work, and play. And I'll just ask you to all open your hands, because my grandfather shared and elders that we receive energy from the Creator through the top of our head, and that each of us has an energy within us. Every human being has this energy. And when we spiritually, we pray to Creator, we receive energy through the top of our head, and then we can send our energy and prayers to anyone, wherever they are. And that's why they say prayer warriors, a lot of our people. And you now and not to have your arms crossed or hands held or in your hands, and be able to open your hands and do a couple breaths. I tease and say Tai Chi or yoga breaths, and do a few breaths with your hands open. See if you can feel energy when you do that. And then I'll say a quick prayer. And then I'm going to close with a song and prayer. So, Kayachtan, Chen Kwenmen Tomi, Kakakanik Chasiam, Yonsion So Manman to squalls to seats, Yonsio Manman Squalwin, Yonsio Manman Tsetop, Yonsio Manman Snachum to squalls to seats. Asking you, Creator, to watch over, protect, and guide each and every one of your children gathered here today, and help them with their squall and the feelings in their hearts and minds, their emotional, mental, physical, and spiritual health and well-being. And asking you, Creator, to help all of your children gathered today with their snachim, the words that are being shared by the presenters, or by sharing experiences or asking questions in a respectful way, to chen stand and work together to hold each other up, support one another, and help each other, and also to help the environment, Mother Earth, and all that's within the lands and waters and air that we all need to rely on and take care of best we can. And to use those words to take into our heart what's meant for us today, set aside what we don't need today to bring back another day, and just transfer knowledge in the best way possible to create solutions. And to Creator, let today's work, this work of this gathering, be yet one haltzetzop, an excellent work. Tuma kwetzi snachum. Those are my words, and Chen Quinman told me I'm grateful and thankful to you for allowing me to join late and do the opening prayer. And now I'll turn it back over to Cody and Dion.
Awesome. As always, Sequoia, thank you for the good words. So, yeah, it's just, man, just feel better after hearing that. So thanks again. Yeah, so where were we here? Okay, yeah, so we've just gone over a bit of the Zoom features, and I want to turn it over to our guest presenter, because she'll be the one who's able to share that little bit of the histories on Leo and how the platform works, and as well as what they're doing with it in Alaska. So I'd love right now to turn it over to the awesome Erica Luan, who's the Leo Network Coordinator up that way. Erica, take it away.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me to join you all today, and I'm honored to speak after such a wonderful welcome. And we'll go ahead and share my screen. So as Cody mentioned, my name is Erica Lujan, and I help coordinate the Leo Network up here at the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium. in Anchorage, Alaska, on the traditional lands of the Dena'ina people. We are so happy to support First Nations Health Authority as they work to document environmental change in the BC area, and are looking forward to learning more about some of the issues that affect people in both Canada and Alaska. So today I'd like to share a little bit about how the LEO network got started in Alaska, as well as how we use the content for local adaptation planning and for building partnerships across the state. Right. So the Alaska Native Tribal Health Consortium is the statewide arm of the tribal health system up here in the state. We are the largest tribal health organization in the US, and our guidance comes from the 229 tribes and the 12 regional tribal health organizations that we serve. The consortium provides a wide range of medical, environmental health, engineering, and community health services to residents across Alaska. And we also do a really wide range of services to support communities experiencing impacts from climate change. Those include innovative infrastructure design and construction, as you can see from the Pass bathroom water conservation system down there in the corner. But we also work to secure funding to relocate infrastructure, as you can see in the top, and we help facilitate climate adaptation plans, which is some of the work that I do that I'm very proud to be a part of. But one of the primary tools that we use to understand the impacts of climate change is the Local Environmental Observer Network, or the LEO network. So LEO is a web platform for people to document and share changes that they see in their local environment. LEO staff, so people like me and Cody, and the wonderful members of our team, connect observers to others, across the state or in the region who can provide more information about the event. And then we facilitate the creation of a public post that is collaboratively written by the observer, any sort of consultants, regional residents, and other topic experts. So the goal of this process is to raise awareness about climate change and environmental change through a description of specific events, and then connect people who can explore these events and help develop community adaptation strategies. So the collection of observations help communities identify trends in environmental change in their area, and also provides interested researchers with information to inform future hypotheses or research questions. So the idea from LEO really came out of conversations that we had throughout our work, but also that came up at the annual Alaska Tribal Conference on Environmental Management, or the ATCM conference. So this is an environmental conference that we host every year in November, and it's the largest gathering of tribal environmental professionals in the US. But people would come to these conferences with stories about environmental changes, such as new animals or insects arriving in certain areas, or observations of significant erosion and permafrost thaw that was really starting to impact infrastructure. And we needed a way to connect people across the state and share information about what might be happening in some of these instances. So in 2012, the LEO network really began as an online platform for documenting observations of environmental change, as described by the people who are experiencing them firsthand. So it was modeled after the Alaska telemedicine program. Those observations are shared with topic experts who can provide consults on issues. So very similar to connecting medical specialists with healthcare providers in rural communities. But anyone is welcome to join the LEO network, and we do have members worldwide. So each, oops, I skipped a slide. So each of the dots on the screen represent an observation post sent in by members that can be viewed by other members. So LEO members can submit two different types of information. I talked a lot about first-person observations, but we also accept news articles. The only criteria is that they describe a specific environmental event. We recognize that the news doesn't catch everything, and we also can't see everything. So we really have to rely on each other to help build this story of environmental change in our area. And our process is very straightforward. So when someone sees an unusual environmental event, they can submit a description of what they saw, along with a photo and a location, to the LEO network. So we do some research on our end to understand the context of the observation. So for example, if someone submits a photo of severe erosion, we can look back in the network to see if others have posted observations of erosion in that area and kind of get a sense of how it's progressed. We can also look online at erosion monitoring data to see if there's any recent research in that area. And then we can contact a topic expert who might be able to offer more information about that specific event. And this topic expert may be someone who has lived in the area for a long time and knows the situation well, or maybe a scientist who is tracking these types of events as part of their work. So we add their responses back to the LEO network post, share it with the observer, and then publish it on the network website for others to see. So this process, in 4 steps, really raises awareness about environmental change and then directs information about unusual environmental events back to the people and the communities that are experiencing them. So I'll go ahead and switch over to the LEO network now. So this is our homepage at leonetwork.org. And there's a couple different things that you can do to both join the network and then share some of the observations or news that you've seen in your area. So first, most important is to sign up as a LEO member. And you can do that from the homepage. You'll be prompted when you hit the page, but that will create a member profile for you where you can see all of your contributions. You can see specific maps that you put together, send messages to each other, and a variety of other things. To submit a post, we can go up here to the top left-hand side of the screen and submit both types of content. And as I said, the steps are very straightforward. We try to guide it as much as possible to make sure that we include all of the good details. So the first step is that we ask people to provide a headline for their observation. This is usually kind of a short summary of what people are seeing. So maybe it's a new bird that has arrived in an area. We've seen a lot of those this winter. Or perhaps, an unusual weather pattern has come through. But then we also ask for the date that the observation was made on. Following that, we ask people to describe the observation in their own words, paying specific attention to why this is unusual or why this is a significant event. So how is this deviating from normal? We also provide a space for folks to upload photos or files to submit the observation. Sometimes these are reports, but very often with these little computers that we carry around with us, we're able to snap photos of the birds or whatever event that we're seeing. So you can upload those there. And then we also ask for people to share a general location of where they made the observation. There's a couple different options. You can search near you, search directly for a place, enter coordinates if it's not near a named place, or of course choose your current location. After that, we ask for a series of categorizations, and this really helps us understand what in the environment has changed, what type of event it was, and then what impact it's had on you or your community. So the first set of questions asks, what change are you observing in the natural environment? Perhaps it's a change in weather or in plants, fish, or insects. Then we ask what type of event you experienced. So perhaps it was extreme temperature or extreme precipitation, drought, algal blooms, and infestation, or sometimes the unusual size or abundance of a migration. Then we ask for the impact on the human environment. And this is really where we're collecting information to be, that helps us think about adaptation strategies moving forward. So we ask if this event impacted the health of people. Perhaps it affected some infrastructure or threatens food or water security. After that, you can either save it as a draft, which you can find under your Leo profile, or you can go ahead and submit it to us. And once you do that, it flows into our desks, and that 4-step process begins. So let's see. Oh, good, I already did that. So this information, it seems like we're collecting a lot of information, but it really helps the Leo editors understand what's happening on a local level and reach out to people who can provide location-specific information. So as these observations are added, we can collectively look back and learn about the impacts to this area from things like flooding and erosion. We can know the context that these events happened in, and perhaps use this to review climate projections and understand how this trend will continue in the future. So those are very important pieces of information as we start to discuss community adaptation strategies. So this is a good example that I like to talk about. So this was an observation that was submitted by Ted Williams and Ruth Ivan from Akiak, Alaska in the YK Delta, the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. And as you can see down here in the observation, Ted is saying that around mid to late May, there was unusually high water in the Big River. So there's a combination of snowmelt and rain, but water is rising all over the world. The high water is more common now, but it's been pretty high for the past 4 years. And this year, a combination of high water and winds caused a lot of shoreline to erode. And then he goes on to describe that erosion more in his community. So what we did was reach out to a couple different people in this instance. We first got in touch with Crane Johnson. So he is a hydrologist with the Alaska Pacific River Forecast Center. And he provided a graph that showed the river discharge in the Kuskokwim River. So how much water was coming down. And that was measured at the nearby community of Crooked Creek. So he does say that the spring flows were higher than average, falling into the 75th to 90th percentile, really along the entire river. And this was the result of a deeper than normal snowpack at the headwater of the river in the Alaska Range. He does say that, increased erosion could be because the river channel is starting to change a little bit, could be helped by winds, but flows were definitely higher. But then so one thing that was interesting about this is that Crane mentioned that the snowpack was higher than normal at the headwaters. So this is a trend that could potentially continue in the future. So we reached out to Rick Toman. He is a climate scientist at the Alaska Center for Climate Assessment and Policy up here at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. And he says that, really confirms what Crane said and said that snowfall during the 2018-2019 winter in the headwaters of the Kuskokwim was above normal. So warm weather in late April and May also allowed for snowmelt earlier than normal at higher elevations and contributed to the high water levels after breakup. So that really stuck 2 points in our mind that two contributing factors to this erosion event was deeper than normal snowpack, also an early spring melt. So if something like this were to happen into the future, those are two things that we would want to look back on and investigate. So tracking, environmental changes can really be a fundamental part of community planning. And I said can be, but it is. It's a really important part of building that story of change in your community. So within Leo, each community has a place for all of its observations and news articles from that area. So I'm going to go ahead and jump back to the Leo network. Closing this page, opening this one. And I'd like to show you guys an example of what these community pages look like. So I'm going to open up the community page for Port Hayden. So we can search for communities using the search bar at the upper right-hand side of the screen. And as you can see, we have a variety of observations that come up with that search term, and then a variety of communities up on the right. So this is obviously working off the word port, but we see Port Hayden up here in the top. So I can go ahead and click in that. And this is what the community page looks like. So down here, we have a list of all of the observations and the news articles that were submitted with information about Port Haydon or in the area near Port Haydon. We have a photo of their community, and we also have a series of data tools that are very helpful. I rely a lot on the weather, so this can tell us more about, whether or not a temperature is wildly out of range. So that draws information from some of the nearby airports and other weather stations. We also have the shore zone photos, and this may be particular to the United States, I'm not sure, but they are literally a series of photos of the coast. So when we get things like observations about erosion, we can kind of go back and look to see how historical photos compare with current photos. And there's a variety of other things. The satellite imagery, great for wildfire smoke or algal blooms, just kind of get a top-down approach. If you can find a day that's not cloudy, and then some of the climate projections from the university up here. So some of these data sources may change, but we try to include as much as we can. And then down here, we can also see all of the members from Port Haydon in there. So this community I'm showing you because we actually worked with them to create a climate adaptation plan and used LEO information in that. So in May of 2017, the Village of Port Haydon and Bristol Bay Native Association initiated kind of an assessment of environmental change and how that environmental change impacts the health of Port Haydon residents. And the goal was, really to hear what changes people were experiencing in the community and how that, again, affects their health and just their daily livelihood. So we began with a conversation about the most significant change that people had experienced in their lifetime. And one of those very significant changes was the rapid coastal erosion that has reshaped the land around Port Haydon. So we turned back to Leo to look at a timeline of Leo events on the community page to learn more about some of these events. So, did I lose my page? I can jump back to, there we go. So this is another great way to look back at, kind of the story of change in the community. And what we do here is look at nearby posts. So I'm actually going to shorten this, to 50 kilometers around the community and hit go. And then we have a couple of different view options. We can look at observations on a map or in thumbnails, but what we're interested here for this project was the timeline. So this puts all of the observations and the news articles into a timeline of change. So when I heard what people were sharing about the coastal erosion in their community, one of the first things that I did was go back to this timeline and going all the way down, all the way back in time. I can start to look for observations that document this erosion to learn a little bit more about how it's progressed. So, I visited in 2017, but I can look back here and say that, oh, okay, in 2013, there was a storm that came in and flooded some of the roads and disrupted transportation. So kind of indicating that the coast is unusually close to the road. Moving forward in time, I see here that it's unusually warm in December, and then that someone else posted that there was no sea ice around the community. So the sea ice creating that really protective barrier to keep the wave energy from eroding the coast. And then that same day that somebody shared that there was no sea ice, we heard about the loss of the fuel header due to coastal erosion. Moving up in time, we can see that, in 2016, the erosion damaged the boat launch. In 2017, it started to threaten a landmark lake in that community. Continued in 2018, and then the erosion reached that lake and breached it in 2019. So so this was a very useful tool for understanding, when people talk about the erosion, like what are some of the key events and the key dates to help us piece that story together. And that was really important information for the report. So we put together, a long report describing all of the environmental changes that are occurring in Port Haydn. And we actually picked out, specific observations and added that information into the report, again, just building that timeline and building that story. And what came out of that is, a really, I don't want to say comprehensive. There's always going to be new information, right? But we learned a lot. We learned a lot from folks there about what kind of changes were happening and how that change impacted their community and what concerns they had around those changes. We also took a look at some of the projections to learn how some of these trends might continue into the future. And then we were able to create a set of adaptation goals. So thinking, looking back into what's happened to the past, talking about what's happening in the present, thinking about what might happen in the future and what activities we want to take to move forward and keep the community as healthy as possible. So there was a series of 6 observations, six adaptation goals that came out of that plan. But so, community adaptation is a really important part, of documenting change, but we can also look at the observations on a much larger scale to identify events that may be affecting whole regions. And now that, so many folks in the BC area are coming, are joining us in Leo, we can start to look at what's happening cross borders as well. So in 2019, one of the biggest trends that we saw was in animal mortalities. So we received observations of seabird deaths, stranded marine mammals, and the deaths of pre-spawned salmon as they traveled upriver. So these events had a huge implication for community food security and really indicated to us a significant disruption in some of the relationships in the ecosystem. So when we received these observations, we forwarded them over to folks at US Fish and Wildlife, to regional fish commissions, and to NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, because we knew something was happening on a large scale. And the role of some of these big organizations is that they can really take that broad look. So we added each observation that we received to a specific map and shared that with Fish and Wildlife. So every Leo member who joins the network has the ability to create these content-specific maps. They can be public or shareable with a link, or just kept private for your own use. I have a really great gardening map that I keep with observations of blooming times. But in this case, we made the map public so that Fish and Wildlife could see the observations and pass the information on. Those observations were then combined with observations from other individuals and other organizations so that we could all understand, how widespread some of these die-offs were. And, it's important to note that Leo is not a monitoring tool, or it's not a tool to collect structured monitoring data, but it can be helpful for creating collections of observations around certain events, trends, or topics so that we can better understand interrelationships from local, traditional, and scientific perspectives. So this is one such collection, and we've revised a little bit how we document these, but this is still one that I like to use because it has very important content. So over 100 observations were posted to the Leo network between October 2013 and December 2016 that could be potentially attributed to this marine heat wave, or as we called it, the blob. So the observations describe a variety of unusual events that related to changes in seasonality, changes in weather, ocean condition, plants, and wildlife. And reoccurring themes included changes and challenges for people engaged in subsistence activities, and increased variability and uncertainty for hunters, from failures to one year to bumper harvests in the next. And so this wonderful group of observers and topic experts, oceanographers, climate scientists, all came together and sorted through these observations and said, okay, yeah, this one is probably blob related, or like maybe this one not quite so much. And what came out of that is this journal article, The High Latitude Marine Heat Wave of 2016 and Its Impacts on Alaska, that talk about some of the broad meteorological trends, but then also brought it all the way down to the local level. So how do some of these trends affect people in their communities? So that was published in 2017. And, you know, coming together as a group like this and talking about these kind of relationships between events is really important for understanding the changes that we are seeing now, especially as some of these changes do happen again in the future. I thought I was so savvy when I put this news article in about the son of the blob that was reported in 2018, but since then, you know, warm ocean surface temperatures have become a real concern, and we're starting to see blobs more often. So, you know, we're really looking forward to hearing what environmental changes folks in BC are noticing. You know, since we share so much resources, we're really curious to learn more about some of the events that affect both Alaskans and Canadians. You know, on this past page, the algal blooms are really becoming more common in our area, and people that have traditionally harvested shellfish are starting to, you know, be more cautious about that. So that's a big change. So we saw this news article from British Columbia, you know, back in 2018, and really indicated that this is something that we are starting to see kind of following you guys. And there's a lot of examples from that. You know, Cody and I were talking earlier and almost sorting through, you know, which examples can we highlight. This one really stuck out to me. It was a observation from Michelle Dyler describing changes in snow and summer rain. So, you know, in her observation, she's talking about, you know, being a child and seeing much more snow cover up on the mountains, and that summers have been progressively drier. So for us, this really stuck out because, oh, this might be getting cut off here, but in 2019, we had several instances of communities whose water security was threatened by abnormally warm and dry conditions. Community water in the Alaska Peninsula community of Chignik Lagoon was threatened. We heard about a drought that caused a water emergency in Nanwalek and Seldovia on the Kenai Peninsula, and mandatory water restrictions down in Southeast. Another example, we saw this news article that the Fraser River is now so warm that it's killing migrating salmon. And as I mentioned before, you know, that is something that we did see in 2019. We heard about it very specifically across in the Norton Sound area, but as researchers have done more work, they've seen it, you know, happen on a statewide basis. So definitely something that we want to be paying attention to. But also, you know, issues like invasive species. So this is an article about, you know, pet owners becoming concerned as ticks move into backyards. And we had our first observation of a dog tick in 2019. And Pam notes in her observation that this is the second tick that she's pulled off of her dog. And this is something that we never had to worry about before. So, you know, we also want to share as much information as we can about what kind of programs we're working with or adaptation strategies that we're doing. In this case, the state veterinarian is working with the Alaska Department of Fish and Game and some university groups to document, you know, what kind of ticks are coming into Alaska, and they're asking people to send in ticks that they find so they can do a species ID and also test it for disease. So that was a lot of information, but I would like to conclude by saying that over the past decade, you know, we have connected people in conversations about environmental change through over 4,000 observations and news articles. And we've found this type of documentation to be really helpful in identifying local and regional trends of change that impact the health and well-being of local communities. And it's demonstrated to us really, how much we can learn from each other and how we can best work together to support local adaptations. So again, we're really looking forward to learning from you all what environmental changes are happening in Canada and thinking about how we can all adapt, most importantly, to ensure that the world that we live in today is available for our children tomorrow. So thank you all again for inviting me today, and I will go ahead and turn it back over to Cody.
Awesome, Erica. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and the program with us again. I always appreciate hearing you chat. We have a few questions, and now I'd like to take an opportunity, maybe just a few moments to touch on those. Dion, would you like to share some of the questions that we've had show up in the Q&A as well as chat?
Yeah, sure. That's great. It's always great hearing you speak, Erica. I love it. Always learning something new about the network as well. We've had about 7 questions pop in, so I'm not sure if we can answer all of them right now, but maybe we'll take a stab at them. So Cindy Collins asked, is this shareable for individual data, information for individual data programs?
I'd like to invite Cindy to turn on her camera and her mic if she would like to talk more about this. I want to make sure that I'm understanding the question correctly. So this is not, we don't share personal information. Everything that we have, let's see if I can actually just show this, it might be easier. So everything that you share with us as far as contact information or any sort of individual data, that's protected with you. So I can show you what public profile looks like. I'll go ahead and share my screen again quickly. This is my friend Jacqueline in Port Hayden. So this is all of the information that is shown on the profile. And we don't share the contact information, but you can send each other messages through the network. But on her profile, we can see all of the observations that she has contributed to and all of the people that she has collaborated with. So that might answer your question. I will look in the chat and see if there's any follow-up.
Is that she's not able to, she doesn't have her computer mic on.
Oh, okay, all right.
So we'll see if she has any further pieces to that. We have Joaquin that's asked 3 questions, so I definitely want to make time for a couple of those ones. So the first one is, as records don't include lack of change, how many positive changes are needed to indicate a trend?
That's a really good question. Every observation of an unusual environmental event is an important one. What we will do is work with topic experts to really understand, when something is becoming significant. So that's really a conversation that happens at a community level. It can also happen at, a level, an organization level, among employees of First Nations Health Authority and their for the salmon die-offs, for example. That was something that really came to Alaska very strongly. It was like, one day we got this observation about these dead salmon. It was like, wow, that's kind of weird. And so we sent that off to Fish and Game, and then more started to come in. And they were clustered around the same region. They were all describing the deaths of salmon that were migrating around the same time. So, there was a lot of evidence to indicate that it was an environmental stressor. We take that and we immediately send it to the Department of Fish and Game and say, hey guys, we're seeing this and we want you to know about this. So they were really the ones that came back to us and said like, oh yeah, something's going on. And it was their researchers as well as the USGS, the US Geological Survey, who collected kind of a statewide picture of the salmon deaths. And, you know, once we all put our information in our heads together, we were able to identify it as a trend. So, you know, I guess, again, I would go back to, you know, it depends on the conversation that you're having in your community about significance, and then, you know, how that factors into evidence that, you know, perhaps other organizations or other people are saying.
Thanks, Erica. And then another one that I know the answer, but it would be best maybe for you to share. So he also says, can there be links to iNaturalist for biological observations, or can iNaturalist feed into Leo?
Oh, very good question. Yes. So this is something that we are working on. And, you know, we would like to roll this out soon. And I believe that my colleagues may be on the call as well. So I'd like to invite them. So iNaturalist and Leo are two different things. iNaturalist collects really wonderful information, a little bit more as like a monitoring program, but every once in a while there's going to be some weird things that maybe some monitoring programs would consider outliers, but it's those outliers that are really interesting to us. So we wanted a way to be able to share information between the two platforms. And we do have a couple observations in here that are from iNaturalist. See if I can bring this up, and I'll go ahead and share my screen again. So, you know, again, this is sort of in beta. We're working on a really structured process to be able to share information between the networks. But this is an observation that we put into Leo from iNaturalist. So this is of a bullfrog that was documented. It's like the northernmost documented frog. And we actually link directly to the iNaturalist platform. So you can jump in and learn a little bit more about that event. So, you know, as we fine tune this, we'll definitely share that process with Cody and Dion, and, you know, is something that that we can share with everyone else. So really good question. Yeah, thank you.
Oh boy, just hold on, Cody. There's a couple of other great ones that I just feel like we should give an opportunity to respond to, because it is something that we heard in the first launch of Leo a few years ago. So Stephanie says, how is privacy handled? I can see there being resistance to submitting info to an open platform, for example, confidential information related to a cultural site.
Yes, that's a really important question. So I should start by saying that the observations are only able to be viewed by Leo members, but anyone can become a member. So this helps prevent certain things from, you know, being pulled into Google searches and things like that. As far as documenting important cultural sites, I would encourage that to be taken on a case-to-case basis and only taken as far as how people are comfortable with. If you don't feel comfortable sharing information, then that is definitely something that you can keep within your community. We do, we want to encourage you to participate as much as possible, as much as you feel comfortable. And we are open to feedback, if there's a hole that you think that we should address. But what I would say to do is to document the event with as much information as you are comfortable sharing, just so that you have it, as part of that story. The thing is that baselines change. And I tell this story, my mother grew up in Anchorage, and when she was a child, there was a lot more snow than there is now. And I moved up here in 2009, and I called her and I said, you know, I need ice tires, I need snow tires with the studs. And she was like, "Why do you need money to do that? Your tires are fine." And I said, "No, Mom, it's icy. It's like we're getting more rain in the winter now. I need these tires. It's a safety thing." And, you know, thankfully she was able to do that for me, but it really demonstrated that my early memories of Anchorage and her early memories of Anchorage are changing. And so it's important for us to document what we think is unusual, because what is unusual now might become normal in the future. So as much of the story as we can document somewhere, that is important. But again, you know, if there is important cultural information, I would encourage you to document that within your community.
Okay, Cody, do we have time for one more?
Yeah, let's take one more, and then we'll, if there's any time left at the end, we'll try and answer as much as we can then, and what we can. But this is good discussion. Here, yeah, just for one more.
Okay, so kind of a follow-up, and again, I highlight this one. It's not that I'm not wanting to highlight some other, and like you said, we'll come back at the end because there's some good pieces here. So Stephanie asks again, what motivates people to add observations? Right now, it appears like this network benefits researchers and managers, but does not benefit members of First Nations who are making the observation. Speaking from a perspective of a nation of a highly populated area in Vancouver Island, where there's lots of different studies going on.
Yeah, you know, so many communities up in Alaska are working on individual community adaptation plans. And these plans have everything from, you know, mitigating coastal erosion to bringing back, you know, traditional winter games. What this does is help create, you know, a story of change for that community, so that when people look back at the history of environmental change in that area, they can look at what's happening, say, in Crooked Creek. They could say what's happening in Aniak and in communities nearby. And then start to, you know, network with each other and say, hey, this is what we're experiencing. This is the timeline of those events. Have you experienced anything like that? You know, see if you can build off of each other's work. But also it's a way to share with funders or with, you know, university groups who have information that could help these processes, these adaptation plans. You know, it's a way to say, this is happening. This is my story of this event. And these are the photos that prove that this happened. And so by taking this documentation to a funder, you know, it helps that proposal, I guess I would say. But each community can use this information in their own way, the way they feel comfortable. And I would like to point out that Mike Brubaker in the chat has added, you know, a nice comment to this as well. He says that the primary goal from the beginning for Leo has been to answer questions asked by local people about the change that they are experiencing. So not directly for the benefit of researchers. But we do try to include topic experts from a variety of perspectives to help with that knowledge sharing. So thank you, Mike, for adding that.
Awesome. Thanks for answering those questions, Eric. A lot of good discussion going on, and glad to see we're able to do that. For the rest of the questions, we're going to try and push those to the end because we have a little bit more to get here. So to push on and showcase to you guys the BC Leo network now. Can everyone see my screen again?
Yep.
Cool. Okay. So let's move on. So I always think before we start talking about the BC Leo network and sort of our hopes and dreams for that, it's really good to look at the past learnings and how that can inform their work going forward. So this is a relaunch, and this is due to the fact that this was originally carried out by the First Nations Health Authority in November of 2016. And with this, there was a few good things that really came out of it, such as the membership base really grew exponentially following the launch. So outreach really played a key role in this, as the BC Leo team was able to really connect with various groups throughout BC. And this would include showcasing at events such as the FNHA's Sub-Regional Caucus meetings, the BC and Federal Ministries Workshop, and as well as the Adapting to Climate Change workshops. So there was some good exposure to the program and the ability to showcase some of its capabilities. The other good thing that came out of this is the Regional Champions Workshop and Leo training sessions, which proved to be effective. And like I said, another great initiative that came with the launch of Leo, as it has provided a good opportunity to gather that and receive that effective training and knowledge in Leo, which could potentially be expanded in a community. So allowing, like I said, we have that gathering of champions. We're able to sort of instill that training and that knowledge on the program and how it can be applied into community, and hopefully it would spread from there. So some great things came out of that in the original part, but there was also some learnings that we have to really learn from in this context as well. So the next part would be a lack of Indigenous perspectives and knowledge in BC Leo. So Leo utilizes, mentioned before, various knowledge systems. And I think the best way to highlight this would be look at the next slide. And if you can see on this graphic here, Leo incorporates that Indigenous knowledge, your local knowledge, and as well as your scientific, all integrating to come together to really hopefully create that full and holistic picture when it comes to answering the questions around climate change and environmental events and environmental health. Unfortunately, we didn't really have that with the traditional knowledge component in certain parts of BC Leo. So for example, with some of the observations, we weren't really seeing them happening on the traditional lands and territories throughout BC. With the topic experts, they were more towards that Western science base, so we weren't really having a lot of those First Nations traditional knowledge holders and Indigenous knowledge holders sharing their expertise to help answer our questions that we're facing today. And then as well, for the webinars and events that were hosted, much of those was a very Western scientific base as well in a lot of the work. So for us, this is something that we really identify as vital to our work this time, because making sure that we're putting that traditional knowledge on that same platform as that Western scientific knowledge, because I'm sure as many of you know here, that traditional knowledge holds just as much value, if not more, when it comes to answering the questions around climate change and environmental health. These are knowledge systems that have existed for thousands of years and have been shared through oral tradition and storytelling to really answer the questions, or answer some of the questions and troubles we face today. So this is, like I said, very much important that we get back to this and including that in our work going forward. As well, we also, I had talked about we had the high interest, but as what came with this was a real lack of observations. And it's really hard it can be due to a few various reasons. I can't put my finger on it per se, it's really hard to say, people are going to uptake a program because it's easy to become a member, but then that involves the other portion of, doing the little bit of work that involved in is to start to populate the Leo network. So this is something that we're definitely working on this time, is ensuring that this aspect is addressed, and hopefully sort of bringing into account the first point that I made of making sure that we include a real large component of Indigenous perspective and knowledge, and making sure that for community members that it's a tool that you see value in and it's made for you, and that it'll help in some way. So that's something that we're really hoping towards including for the next part. Following that was the capacity challenges, and I will admit it was a small team then, and we were a small team now. So we really need to learn from what occurred in the past with our learnings, and then making sure we're using the best of our resources for this. So one would be making sure to develop materials that are geared towards First Nations people and communities, using our social media strategy to really promote and connect and keep people involved with the BC Leo network, because I've had a few conversations already with some community members throughout the past few weeks, and they bring up the idea of if we have a Facebook page or any kind of socials or anything like that. So for us, that's a big thing, that's an easy way for people to stay in the loop and connect with one another about programming. So for us, I know we're working really diligently on making sure we have our social media accounts available soon so people can partake in that way and hopefully stay in the loop on the work we're doing. And then lastly is making sure we're using our resources such as other teams in the Environmental Public Health Service and First Nations Health Authority and external partners to really help promote, because these are such awesome resources, and a lot of our programs really come together and really intersect in the realm of climate change and environmental health. So how use each other's voices to really uplift and bring awareness to what we're doing. And then lastly, Erica had touched a little bit on it, is but the concerns around privacy. And like I said, I must really note that whatever you do post on this platform is viewable for other LEO members to view. And then so one of the things we've heard, and I just looking back at some of the past materials and meetings and interviews that were done, is that a lot of community members were concerned about, the questions we had, sharing traditional areas or where you may live, because I completely understand that. My grandmother's the exact same way. She wouldn't want anyone knowing where she lived, even remotely where she lived, or when she went back in the bush to harvest, that area was off limits and she wouldn't want no one else to know that area. So that's, I completely understand where we're coming with that. So in this instance, we really have to find that solution that allows people to still use the LEO resource, even if they don't feel comfortable sharing that certain kind of information. So now we're going to just jump on to the next part here, and you may have seen a bit of this slide already. So our whole goal in all this is really to establish a community of practice that provides a culturally safe platform to share knowledge and partner around the ongoing environmental changes that are happening on the lands, water, and harvest that impact community health. And so when I talk about this, what I'm really going towards is making sure that we indigenize the platform and the space, and that's something I believe that can really help us reach our goal. So when I'm speaking about this, indigenizing the space or the platform, it really must include that the BC LEO Network is working towards a transformed space for cultural inclusivity and bringing community voices and traditional knowledge to the forefront. And this will support efforts in sharing that traditional knowledge and hopefully revitalizing cultural practices, and as well as learning from those on the land in addition to Western scientific knowledge. So as well as to help support this, we really aim to grow the BC LEO Hub Nations, individuals, communities, groups, and organizations, developing a culturally safe space for two-way information sharing. This is huge for us, ensuring that First Nations voices are being heard and included when it comes to the direction of BC LEO, because this would include providing input on things they would like to see, such as the resources, so highlighting community stories, guest presenters, and as well as highlighting First Nations youth work and achievement. And then lastly, ensuring that we're integrating BC First Nations environmental health and wellness perspectives in the First Nations Health Authority 7 directives into our platform materials. So some of the more intangible things when I talk about transforming the space and all of this relaunch, as you can see here, the big one for us is really developing that community of practice. And this would be including community members in the guidance of LEO and other programs that have similar interests and work in the realm of climate change and environmental health. And with this, it also comes the idea of really breaking away from silos, because far too often we have these excellent programming and initiatives we don't share, where we don't share information or work as closely together as we can. So this can be a real barrier to building and uplifting programs and have that potential for some awesome work. So I know for us, involves getting involved with various other programming that, like I said, share those connections with LEO. The next piece is really our monthly webinar series, and as we are today, these will be a monthly piece that we hope to share information such as community projects and knowledge shared. Like I said, highlighting those stories and resilience. Having those BC LEO observations and having the opportunity to discuss them, highlighting programs such as the iChat program or Watch program, and as well as any kind of good information and things, including funding opportunities or grants. Like I said, making sure that we're using our platform to uplift other programming and communities, and making sure that this is something that may be to them. And as well, we're making sure that we include Indigenous or meaningful topic experts to come and present a lot of our materials, because the work going on, because I know for us, that's a huge thing, is showcasing Indigenous voice when it comes to resiliency in the realm of climate change and environmental health. So And then lastly, just keeping this as an innovative piece and interactive. Like I said, we love this discussion. It's been awesome to this day, and you know, that's what we want to have more of in the future. The monthly newsletters, they very much mirror the webinars themselves. So again, highlighting those community projects and knowledge shared, highlighting those prominent BC Leo observations, and as well as highlighting community work going on in programming. So such as iChat, such as Watch, and a lot of, like I said, that funding opportunities or any kind of grants. Like I said, making it a hub where individuals can gather this information that may be of use. And then as well as any kind of tidbits of any useful kind of information. And then next for that would be including our, oh, sorry, there we are, our BC Leo Network Hub, to our Leo Network Toolkit. So essentially this will be a menu of resources, tools, and information developed for a few specific audience. So like I said, our First Nations communities, First Nations Health Authority departments, external partners, anything like that. So they'll have things such as flyers, brochures, pamphlets, one-pagers, and lastly, the development of short informational videos on how to use and then get the best value out of Leo. And then as well, we're going to be hosting our BC Leo Network page on the fnha.ca website. And this will be for easily accessible information, any kind of updates, and highlighting Indigenous work being done in BC. And that'll also be a spot where we will house a lot of our webinars as well. If you're not able to partake in one, you'll be able to look there for some of the past work that's gone on. And then, like I had previously mentioned before, making sure that we're having the best use of social media. So with a Facebook account, Twitter, and Instagram. So two things when I really talk about relaunching the BC Leo Network and to really help with any potential confusion. The Leo Network will act as the place where all posts and observations are shared. The BC Leo Network acts more as a hub for the BC area. So for example, we'll house a lot of our information such as newsletters and webinars on our own platform, which will be that webpage on the fnha.ca website. And as well as when I talk about the idea of around a tool in the toolbox, I mean having access to it or to answer the questions around climate change and environmental health. So one of the big things we want to do with this platform, and I've been previously mentioning, is creating space and highlighting other great work that's happening. So for example, showcasing the work being done with the Watch project in iChat. So Watch, for example, stands for We All Take Care of the Harvest. It's essentially a pilot project that addresses seafood safety, security, and sovereignty in the context of climate change. And the whole purpose of the project is to help coastal communities and their members decide if and when their seafood is safe to harvest. And then with the iChat program, which is the Indigenous Climate Health Action Program, iChat funds community-driven projects that help strengthen community resilience related to climate change impacts on health. So this can go towards things such as developing strategies and plans to reduce climate change, training and skill building, and creating communications materials. So just from listening to a few sentences about each program, you automatically can see that it's very much climate change and environmental health related, very closely to what we're doing. So if we have the ability to have a platform where we can showcase these awesome programs going on in community, and as well any kind of good work going on, we're going to do that and make sure that communities and people have great access to that. So just to sort of reiterate and bring us back to the whole thing and of what we're really hoping to accomplish with the BC Leo Network is to ensure that First Nations voices, knowledge, and traditions are included in the Leo Network itself. The next thing is ensuring that individuals are able to share their story and knowledge, and this will in turn will help to bring awareness of what's occurring on the lands and territories of BC, because far too often there may be a lot of stories of development or, you know, water quality issues or wildfires or food security and food insecurity and food sovereignty that very much go unmissed in the mainstream media. So if we can provide an opportunity for that voice and knowledge to be shared of what's happening, we hope to do that, you know, as much as we can. And then the next thing for sure is making sure that we develop a community, that strong community of practice to help guide the work going forward. And then lastly, ensuring that the youth have a voice and platform to share their knowledge and work that's going on, because they're going to be the ones that in the end inherit the work that we're doing in a lot of the situations that we're in. So who better to have at the table than the next generation that's going to be taking on a lot of the challenges that we're seeing today. I was going to share some BC Leo observations. We're really getting close to time, and I want to make sure we have enough time for Sequelia to provide a good closing prayer for us. So we will save some Leo observations for next month's webinar. I apologize for this, but please do stick with us for next month for that. It'll be an awesome piece, and we'll have some great material for you guys. So with that, let's see, we have about 8 minutes. I don't even know if we'll have a lot of time for questions and all of this now. Okay, I think we should just let Sequelia provide a closing just to be safe. And if there's any time, maybe we can have discussion after, because I think it's something that really should take precedence when this work. So Sequelia, are you able to join and hear us? Nothing yet. I've unmuted her. Interesting.
And to let you know, Cody, Erica's been doing a fabulous job of answering some of the amazing questions that have been posed by our audience. So thank you, Erica, for sharing your knowledge, and Mike as well for contributing. This has been really good. I'm loving the interaction here.
Thank you for that. They're the Leo gurus, and like I said, if you want to learn a little bit more about the platform, definitely take a look on what's going on, north of us in Alaska, because some great work and projects taking place. Okay. Well, we might as well, while we wait, take some time to field some questions, if you would like, if anyone has any to ask.
What are you waiting for?
Oh, there you are.
I'm sorry, I had gone downstairs quick and had to go answer the door quick. I'm having a crazy day.
Yeah, well, perfect timing. We were just asked if you'd like to do a closing way before we all leave today.
I will, and my apologies for being a crazy day for me.
No worries, no need to apologize.
It was a grandson day, and I spend a lot of time with my 16-year-old grandson, who I've helped raise, Chenaltzit, and he carries the name Sequalton also, Gavin. And so during this last few months, when he comes to my room, I let him talk and listen to him, put down my devices, and it's his time. So my hands are up to you, thanking you all for understanding and my granny time.
That always. I was just going to say that takes precedence. Family is most important.
Thank you. I kept him home from school for the last 2 weeks because him and I had timelined one of his classmates. Luckily, he had missed school, and we found out her uncle had tested positive, his family, and we timelined it out. And we knew that today or yesterday she would get a positive, accurate test result, because she had gone in the day after she heard about her uncle. And we just found out 10 minutes ago on Facebook, she posted that she had tested positive. And I was like, yes, I kept him home to protect him, and I did it. So I'm feeling pretty good right now. And I feel real good about the work that you're doing in Alaska. That's awesome. Got a good friend of working with Cody, and you can hear his enthusiasm and passion that he has for this to get off in a good way here in BC. So I hope all of you that are joining today I know you have that passion about the land and the teachings that you might have from your elders and your territory. That's the traditional knowledge, and you have to seek it out more. I always say, talk to your elders, learn your language, learn your culture and traditions, and it's tied to the land. And, you know, that's why it's important to do these things, because things are changing, but to know that they've always been changing. And it's the old people that always notice the differences. And so, you know, in about 40 years, you'll be the old people saying, this is what it was like in 2020, 2021, and knowing the differences then even. So I just give you words of encouragement, and I really like what I learned from Cody in the PowerPoint presentation and in talking to him, and also from our guest from Alaska. My hands are up to you for the good work that you and your team do, and those that want to work with all that's being done for the network. And it's about working together, Chen Chen Swite. So I'm going to ask you all to open your hands. I'm going to sing Slolum Ha Squile, Sequalia song, greeting of the day. Then I'll say a prayer and then I'll let you go. And it's all right if we go another 5 minutes, right?
Sure. Yep. Take the time you need.
Okay, then. So ground yourself. Well, you can tell it's nice and hot and sunny. My drum was sitting on the sun from the window and it got nice and tight. So now I'm going to just share the prayer and ask you to pray for each other and all your family and friends and your communities. Chen Kwe Mentomi Kakakanik Chasiam. Yonsyon so Tanoyop and Manman to squalls to seats. Yonsyo Manman Squalwin, Yonsyo Manman. Equatal Chet Squalwin. Siaya Chet Squalwin. Asking you, Creator, to watch over and protect each and every one of your children here today. And also all of their family, Equatal Chet, and all of their friends, Siaya Chet. And protect them and help them with their squallow and the feelings in their hearts and minds, their emotional, mental, and physical and spiritual health and well-being. Asking you, Creator, to put a shield around them, to protect them as they go forward into the rest of the day and going forward in the next few days and time that we're traveling through right now on our life journey. And asking you, Creator, also to help each and every one of your children here with the work that they're going to do to be part of the Leo network, and also the work that they do in their communities, and to have that knowledge be transferred to them from their elders, and to be able to share and help Mother Earth, both land and water, and all that's on in the water and on the land. Asking you, Creator, to hear our prayers for all of our family and friends who have serious illnesses, those who have tested positive for COVID. Prayers for my grandniece Mabel and her grandmother and mom that she lives with to be safe, and also those who have recovered from COVID to stay healthy. And prayers for all who have different forms of cancer and receiving treatment, those with heart problems receiving treatment, arthritis, and all the different types of arthritis, and how it really impacts people's lives, and they need that treatment. And those with diabetes, TB, HIV, Hep C, anxiety, depression, all the other illnesses I can't even begin to name, and also those with injuries, those who are waiting for surgery, or those who have had surgery. Creator, hear all our prayers for our family and friends that we've said, for their health, healing, and recovery. Asking prayers, Creator, for all our family and friends who have traumas and battle alcohol and drugs, especially those who use drugs that may have fentanyl or carfentanil in it, because the supply is dangerous and is taking more lives than COVID is. So asking they be protected. And those who are homeless during this cold time of winter, when it's still cold and the rains are going to start, protect and keep them safe. And Creator, hear our prayers for all of them to find that healing path to wellness, sobriety, and recovery, to be survivors. Creator, hear our prayers for all their families. Worry about them every day and are always living in a state of worry and anxiety for their loved ones. Lift up their spirits and lighten them with the prayers we send for them in their squalling. And also, Creator, hear our prayers that their loved ones contact them either directly or through someone else to let them know that they're safe, because a lot of families aren't able to go find their loved ones right now like they usually do, just to check up on them. And so prayers that they contact their loved ones and say, I'm all right and safe. And Creator, hear our prayers for all our family and friends and communities who may have lost loved ones and have squall and strong feelings of sorrow in their heart, that they're lifted up in their time of sorrow with all our prayers we send to help hold them up at this time. Creator, have everyone always know, and ancestors, that our ancestors and loved ones who went home to Creator and ancestors are always our guardian angels. And when we're low in spirit or worked hard or have something that weighs us down, we need to go do the spiritual things to brush off, and they'll send us signs. And a lot of our people believe dragonflies are our ancestors visiting, especially when they keep flying around us or land on us. And ladybugs, butterflies, hummingbirds, or maybe you see lots of an eagle just sitting there, and then after you've gone by and you look back and it's gone, or it makes you light in your heart. That's a loved one spiritually helping lift your spirit or take that heaviness off of you. So know they are always our guardian angels, and they love us and worry about us and don't want us hurting. So again, Creator, take care of all your children gathered here today and protect them and help them. Enjoy the rest of this good weather that we may all be having, I hope. And have a good evening and the rest of the week. And those with children, have a great spring break with them. And be protected and safe. Tama Kwetsi Snachum. Those are my words. Chen Quinn Mentomi, I'm grateful and thankful to all of you for letting me share this afternoon and listen to the awesome presentation and dialogue that happened. I found it really, really engaging and learned some things, and we need that in right now in our world, and to work together. And so I always say top left, a peace sign over my heart, because my late son always said that, and it was love for the heart, peace, air hugs, big air hugs, and say, Wachayap yo, you all take care. Back to you, Cody.
Awesome. Great words. Great words as always, Sequoia. Nyawa for sharing that with us today. So everyone, that would bring us to the end. Just as we were filing out, we're just going to throw out one last poll if you want to have a quick glance at it. It's just, how did you find the quality of today's webinar? Feel free to answer before you leave, and we would ask that stay tuned. We'll have many more great discussions. Like I said, big plans ahead for the BC Leo Network, and I want to extend a big thank you to Sequoia for providing that opening. Our team from Leo, Alaska, specifically Erica, for giving that great presentation, and as well to Emma and Dion for working as moderators today and providing some great help with that. So Yawa, thanks again for joining, and looking forward to seeing you guys again soon.
And thank you for being understanding. I was so enjoy spending that time. I've helped raise my grandson since he was born. And he, for a while, never used to come talk to me. And since COVID, he started coming in for his hourly chit chats with me. And that makes me really happy. And he'll do it several times a day now, actually. So great work, everyone. An awesome presentation.
Thank you.